Welcome back to Revenue RX, the podcast at the intersection of pharmacy and finance. I'm your host, Lubna Mazen. A few episodes ago, we broke down status indicators. We talked about pass-through versus non-pass-through. If you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to it because today's episode is building directly on top of that episode. Here's the thing about pass-through. It's easy to miss. It's not a label CMS assigns once and forgets. It's a pipeline that is consistently moving. Every quarter, new drugs enter with protected separate payments, and every quarter, some products reach the end of their pass-through period and eventually move on to status indicator N or status indicator K. Today, I want to use the actual July 1st, 2026 pass-through updates as a live case study. We'll walk through what changed and, more importantly, what it means operationally for your pharmacy revenue cycle team watching this pipeline real time. A quick recap for those that did not watch the previous episode. Pass-through status is status indicator G, which is given to new drugs or biologics that have protected payments under OPPS for 2 to 3 years while CMS collects real-time cost data. When that window ends, the drug typically moves into a standard OPPS payment methodology. Depending on the product, that may mean status indicator K, which is continued separate payment, or status indicator N for drugs that become packaged. Or they may get assigned a status indicator that falls somewhere in between. Effective July 1st of 2026, 6 newly coded drugs, biologics, and radiopharmaceuticals entered the pipeline with status indicator G. A9574 for Farabright, C9310 for Avixa, J1289 for Yartemlya, J2361 for Extenture, J2789 for Epoxa, J9062 Ribavant Vaspro. Pass-through status at launch is a revenue protection window. For brand new products with no established utilization data, being packaged into an existing APC could badly undervalue what the drug actually cost. Pass-through by CMS gives 2 to 3 years it needs to collect hospital cost data before determining ongoing payments. If any of the previous 6 drugs were on your formulary or under consideration, this is the moment to get them built correctly into your charge description master. Delayed building during pass-through window is delayed revenue that causes a lot of rework. There's also a nuance that people often confuse. Pass-through status isn't only for brand new molecules. 3 existing HCPCS codes newly picked up status indicator G this quarter that are all biosimilars. Q1DH, a ustekinumab biosimilar, Q5146, a trastuzumab biosimilar, Q5161, a denosumab biosimilar. Biosimilars can be a relatively established molecule in the marketplace and still qualify for their own pass-through window when there is a newly approved product competing against the originator or other biosimilars. Don't assume a Q code is automatically a non-pass-through drug. Just because there is a biosimilar already established doesn't mean that this cannot also get a status indicator of G. On the other side of the pipeline, 8 codes lost pass-through status effective July 1st, moving from status indicator G to status indicator K, meaning they are still separately reimbursable, however, they are no longer pass-through. J0208, J1440, J1961, J2329, J2781, J9056, J9350, and Q5129. Exiting pass-through status does not mean the drug stops being separately reimbursable. It means CMS has collected enough hospital cost and utilization data that the product is no longer qualifying for the transitional pass-through payment. If any of those 8 carry meaningful volumes for your organization, they belong in your margin watch list now. CMS also issued retroactive status indicator changes that are effective this cycle. HCPCS code J1741 moved from status indicator N to K1, retroactive to March 11th of 2026. Q5156 moved from E2 to K, and J7674 moved from E1 to N, both backdated to April 1st of 2026. A retroactive status indicator change means the claims that you've already billed under the old indicator may now be updated. If that claim was previously not expecting payment and is now changed to a status indicator that does expect payment, please go back and pull up those claims to ensure that you are assessing the reimbursement appropriately. A great habit to establish is to keep an eye out on drugs that are status indicator G. Set a calendar reminder 2 to 3 years after the status indicator has been given to reassess whether that drug has been moved to status indicator N or status indicator K. Review the Addendum B every quarter, not just in January. CMS updates status indicators quarterly, and this cycle proves the biggest changes don't only land on the end of the year updates. Make sure you separate retroactive status indicator changes in a separate work queue to reassess all of those claims to establish whether or not reimbursement was accurate and resubmit as appropriate. Pass-through status was never meant to be a one-time classification, so please be sure to check at launch and don't forget to reassess what the status indicators are. This is just a drug pipeline. The drug may enter CMS payment through status indicator G. However, they will not last there forever. At max, it will be 3 years before that status indicator changes. Thank you for listening to another episode of Revenue RX. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a colleague, like, and subscribe. And remember, healing patients is the mission, protecting the margin is the strategy. This is Revenue RX. Quick disclaimer, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The views shared are my own and do not represent any organization I am affiliated with. This is not legal, financial, or reimbursement advice, and you should consult your internal experts before making any decisions.